economic style.
Well.
But thank you.
Okay, it's 6:37, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole Community Development meeting to order. First, I guess I'd like to see if we get the approval of the agenda. So, is there anybody that wants to have any change to the agenda before I do that? No changes. All good. All moved. Moved by Mayor Deschamps and seconded by Councillor Waddy Smale. Councillor Smale, of course. Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature. All the questioner. Yes, right. Yeah. You've only done this a few times. Okay, so, all right, so let's call it to vote then for the approval of the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Okay. There we go. All right, now we move on to disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Does anybody have none? No disclosure here. Hearing none, that's good. Okay, business arriving from the previous committee meeting minutes. Anything from the last meeting that anyone want to bring to our attention? No, nothing. Okay, hearing none, that's good. All right.
I can do it now, or I know I can do it under various notice and motion, but the small business and trade show is in the minutes of the last one, so I guess I can compliment the development coordinator and all of the volunteers that helped out for another successful trade show. We had a fantastic swag bag and I enjoyed. I went all 3 days. I wasn't there for a long time, but it was certainly good, and happy for Mr. Hannibal and all the small businesses that were released. So well done to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. All right, moving on to delegations and presentations. We have here Ms. Caroline Rubuto from the Affordable Housing Coordinator, the United Counties of Leeds Grenville. Caroline, take it away.
Thanks everyone for having me, really appreciate it.
Sorry, I should mention as well that we try and keep these to about 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay, great. I'll try to speed through. So I'm the Affordable Housing Coordinator at the county, so I'm Caroline Rubuto. With my position, I'm responsible to promote, liaise, and recognize strategies to support, enable, and encourage affordable housing created in communities around me. And I thought I would start off by clarifying what is affordable, because there's lots of different definitions out there. And so we talked to the program you're referring to. And a couple of the standard ones that we use right now are through Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which is basically paying 30% of the income towards new rent for mortgage. A lot of the programs that we use in the housing department, social department, is through the MMAH, and they use 80% of the average rents for finding size as an example. So in Leeds and Grenville, we've created our own alternate average market rents table, because CMHC actually only makes it thoughtful when they make their average rents. So what we've done is our housing department completes their own survey looking at rentals everywhere from Cardinal, Morrisburg, Cardinal, Kemptville, Montreal, Prescott, and basically where we're land rentals to get a picture for all of these in rentals. So this is our current table, and it's also current land review. So right now, about $900 for a 1 bedroom is what we use. Some of the programs that we have in Leeds and Grenville, I'll just provide a general overview and then go to more information about each of them. We have affordable housing rental units. We have our home ownership program. We have a housing allowance program, and we have a secondary student program, which is new. And I just wanted to do a quick slide of just a couple of our units, just to show really how beautiful our units are. We have them in Green Rays, Leeds and Grenville, Rockville, Lansdowne, Gananoque, Prescott, Kemptville, and Oxford Hills. And they range in different bedroom sizes, everything from 1 to 2 bedrooms, but most of ours are bedroom units. Most of our units also are designated for either seniors or persons with a disability as time, but we do have some units that are. When I was preparing my presentation, I asked our housing case manager who does applications just to pull a couple of files to give an idea as to who it is that's applying for subsidized housing. So what we do see is a single senior, who received OAS, GIS, and CPP with an annual income of about $22,000. We could see a person receiving Ontario Disability Support Program with an annual income of $30,000. Or an employed couple with 4 children with an annual income of $32,000. So as of now, the household income limits for affordable housing are about $39,000 per bedroom unit, and people do have an asset limit as well for $50,000. But we do have some other sections such as registered retirement savings. I thought I'd just briefly talk about rent your income units just to differentiate the difference between. Just did a slide of some of ours that are located throughout the county. So we have some units and pictures on again, Way, Campbell, Cardinal. So the difference between rent your income housing and affordable housing, the rents are based on the unit. So once you qualify under the income, then your rent is set and it's based on the unit. And rent your income is 30% of the household's income. So you could be paying a different amount of rent than your neighbor. In the United Counties, we have a requirement to provide 987 rent-your income units, and they're located in various locations throughout the county. And I apologize, I forgot to Spencer on the slide, so I sent it up, so we have the correct version. So that was nice. The units are provided by the county's housing department, but also by nonprofit and cooperative housing providers. And this is the information on how to apply. So we have applications that are available on the internet. So moving on to our affordable housing programs, the first one I wanted to talk about is our affordable home ownership program. So it provides down payment assistance for first-time home buyers in the form of a 20-year forgivable loan. The maximum is that's issued is up to 5% of the purchase price, so up to $14,000. And right now, the maximum purchase price is $280,000. The household income can exceed $84,000 and exceed $50,000. So those are currently under review, and we do review each year, just looking at general market conditions, income, and those pieces. We have housing allowance programs to various names at the county, and what they do is they provide financial assistance directly to low-income renters to help make their rents more affordable. So they're paid directly to the renter, and the landlord's not involved. They do allow for renters to reside anywhere in decent rental and receive a housing subsidy, which is nice. It's a very sort of a bricks and mortar subsidized housing that is located somewhere, and it's easy to find that. And it's portable thing. So one of our biggest programs is our secondary suite programs. They're called different names depending on how they're referred to. So they could be called an additional residential unit, a garden suite, or an in-law suite. And they're a self-contained unit with a private kitchen and sleeping area. What I discovered when I was looking into this program is that every municipality in Vincent has different requirements for their secondary suites, so there isn't really a standard set as to what's allowable or not. There has been some recent changes with the allowing of up to 3 units on a piece of land, but that's only related to land service, so on city water and sewer. So if you're on a septic and well, then the hazard rate, so we can see. So we have 2 different streams of leasing rental. We have a homeowner program, which is a 15-year interest-free forgivable loan of up to $25,000 to create a secondary suite on the property of the applicant's primary residence. And we also have a landlord program that provides a 10-year interest-free forgivable loan of up to $50,000 for small landlords to create a secondary suite on the property of an existing residential rental unit. So the homeowner program is funded through the provincial government, so some of the requirements that come with that. We found are missing, so that's why we created a second screen that would be open to landlords. So the homeowner program, yes, it must be on the.
Sure.
The landlord program is funded by the United Counties of Lease and Rental, and it's applicable to small landlords which own from 1 to 10 residential rental units. And the project must be located on the property of an existing residential rental unit. So for both programs, the tenant selection and eligibility is the same. So tenants residing in the unit must meet eligibility criteria for community housing. Their income must be at well below 60th income percentile, which is $89,000, and accountable assets below $50,000. And we can also hear about this from the homeowner. So the asset limits for this program are actually a little bit higher than our regular affordable housing limits, and that was set so that would ensure that we could cover seniors or senior couples who might be residing in the secondary suite. We think a lot of the uptake in the program might be in relatives or something. So for the secondary suites, affordable rents must be charged during the affordability period, so they cannot exceed this table, and they are reviewed annually by the company. And to apply or get more information about that, that's just some of the contact information to contact either our programs case manager or applications and so the second part of our presentation has to do with our housing affordability plan. So the Dillon Consulting reports were requested by the county's affordable housing task force. So they created a discussion paper and an affordability plan. So I just wanted to go over some of those. So as most of you may probably know, the Leeds and Rentals population is aging and will require additional supports such as seniors housing. It's also looked at what we have for housing stock, and intensification and greater diversity of housing is needed to meet varying sizes and needs across the county. So secondary suites is one of the programs that are looking at how to intensify and also plan with the neighborhood. We have a high incidence of core housing need in renter households in the county, especially as compared to homeowners, and there's a gap in affordability in housing. And that's where remember in municipalities to consider setting affordable housing targets and decide how to distribute affordable housing. So from the affordability plan, some of the recommendations that we are considering is identifying surplus municipal lands that could be converted or used to build affordable housing. So that's been my primary project since I started in this new role. Partnering with nonprofit housing providers to identify suitable land or establish a land trust. Purchase a multi-unit building to convert to affordable housing. So it's not necessarily just building, but create a revolving affordable housing program fund to generate funds to support capital programs. Another is to create outcome-based performance indicators to evaluate progress made, and partnering with member and partner municipalities, have an ongoing dialogue on affordable housing and work collaboratively towards local affordable housing initiatives. And another recommendation was to create a position to implement the program. Some of the other current projects that I'm working on is connecting with developers and supporting projects that are in development. So, for instance, whenever a municipality is working with a developer or the planning department, they express sort of interest in creating affordable units, then they connect me with them. I can do some different affordable housing programs. So that's great if we can have like a warm connection from the developer to myself. I'm definitely happy to talk to them. Secondary suite programs, so I can train to advertise that as well. And I'm looking at developing an affordable housing workshop program for elected officials and municipal staffs to move forward. So after, so in April, we're planning to do this surplus land report, and that's kind of the next step is to, after the lands have been identified, to then look at options and processes for developing housing. And also looking at creating a defined definition for affordable housing that's applicable to the county. So, just to sort of lay out exactly what we're talking about before. And then that's my contact information. So I'm happy to talk anytime anyone wants to give me a call.
That's good. You went over 2 minutes, but that was good. That's fine. It was
Well,
good.
I can go too much over.
No, 1 minute and 11 seconds. Well, I just didn't want to lose track of it. But it was, we have some flexibility there, obviously. So, hopefully, we have questions for you today if you want to interview. I'm sure.
Yeah, great.
Well, yeah, I realized it's on the spot and everything, but I think we said you had some questions about it before, right?
Well, I already, I talked to Caroline this afternoon, but that one particular one with, if you could fill us in on the first time home buyers
Yes.
and
So-
why it is first time home buyers.
Yeah, so with the planning programs, that particular program is funded through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and it comes with program guidelines. So there's sometimes certain rules that they have to follow with programs, and for that particular program, that is one of them. The reasoning behind that is so that if it's a first time home buyer, it also will potentially, and they have to be a renter, so that will open a program so you know the name into their home, so we're supporting in a sense almost.
And I also, to the chair, and I also, am very interested in when you say that we all have to work together and do, come together. I'm really, really interested in the, in this 7,007 years program. So if you could keep me updated on that, I should appreciate that. Fine presentation. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. Oh, one more, sorry. Page 1281, some of our houses, they had the nice houses on Prescott. Could you tell me the location of that roughly? I was trying to find them.
Sure.
Because they're is it Churchill Road?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, they're beautiful.
yeah, so it's on Churchill Road, is it?
Oh, that's mine. Oh, I thought we put pictures. Oh, yes, the affordable units. There you are. Yeah, I believe so. It was great.
Okay,
Others come to mind, but yeah, there's 4 units, 2 are RGI and 2 are affordable. They look
Thank-
exactly the same.
thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Through the chair, your affordable house programs, how are they right now? Is there a lineup? How are they received? Is there?
Sorry, you just.
That's okay. Just wondering on the use of the affordable housing programs. Is there a waiting line? Is there
Oh, yeah, okay, that is a good question. I didn't have the wait list broken down, my location before I came here today. In general, for renting here to income and affordable housing units, the wait lists do vary. I think right now it's available 450 applicants waiting for a unit anywhere in Leeds and Granville. But I can say our 1 bedroom units have the longest list by. So certain projects, we're so those will be, and then just depending on location, there could be shorter radius, it just varies.
so they're well used?
Absolutely, yeah, I think it's anywhere between 1 to 5 years, just depending on the location and the size of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman, you have as well. I thought, so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I guess following up on Joe's question, the buildings in Cardinal and the building that's in, which I didn't see any notice of, the building in Spencerville.
Yes,
Can you tell me, like Joe, is there quite a waiting list, and how long would it take to turn that over?
oh, that's a great question. So what we've noticed about our units is that there's very little unit turnover. Oftentimes we'll see maybe 1 or 2 households move out in a year, which is very low just by the industry standards. So that's why the wait list, it takes so long to move in, because once you move in, you have this low affordable rent and we like to make them good landlords in the counties and provide supports, so our tenants tend to stay.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that in these, and I'm talking about the Cardinal type building and one in Spencerville, that people can actually rent an apartment in there and pay the market value for that apartment. Is that right?
So the units in Spencerville and Cardinal are 100% RGI. But let's say you move in and your income improves, so you can continue to live there and just pay the market. So let's say you moved in, you were, 63, and then this something you get more income coming in. And if you end up with a maximum income, then you just end up paying. We do have market rent units located throughout the county, quite a few in Prescott. We turn some of our units that are family units into market units, so there's no, just like a regular landlord in that sense for you.
So why would you do that with the shortage of apartments for low income people? Why would you now have buildings at market value rent? Why would the county do so?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I'm not sure how many years ago it was quite a few now, probably closer to 10. Prescott Council came to the county and actually asked to reduce the number of income units to help spread them through the county. And so instead of selling the units, we chose to keep them as an asset and keep them as rental stock. And what that means is we can now have an RGI located somewhere else in the county. So it's a way to sort of redistribute.
I guess I realize you're new to the job, aren't you?
I'm new to the job, but I've been with the county for 20 years and we're getting.
So it'd be interesting to see whether the counties actually follow through with their plan by keeping these houses in Prescott for market value rent. And whether they actually, if let's say for an example, there's 5 houses in Prescott that they kept for market value rent. Did they purchase 5 more houses throughout the counties to put into low income rent?
Usually what's happening now, so with the, so with our nonprofit housing providers, their operating agreements are slowly coming to an end. So we look for new ways to continue to fund those and support those units. So for instance, some of the, like the federal projects, at the end of their operating agreement, they no longer have the requirement to provide housing. So what we do is we look for ways to help continue to support them, whether it's through housing allowance program or rent supplement, and find ways to sort of fund in that sense. I have to confirm exactly how things got moved around, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what, sometimes everybody has great ideas, but they don't follow through on that idea. So if you want to be in the rental, the market value rental game, I don't know why the counties would be in it. But if they wanted to be in the market value game, 5 houses in Prescott, I think they should offset that by purchasing 5 more houses throughout the county somewhere. But that's, I'm just.
Thank you, Mr. Doby. Appreciate that.
If I can add to it.
Sure.
So I can clarify too that those are considered affordable, so they're charging, even though they're not technically an affordable unit, we are keeping that smaller.
If I could just have one more question, please. Sure. And I'm voting on it, granted. But when I look at the amounts that the counties have come up with for rent, for example, there's a big discrepancy in rent throughout Leeds and Grenville. If you go to Cardinal, for example, it's cheaper. If you get back in towards the Athens area in the back parts of Leeds, and even in the back parts, well, perhaps not in Grenville, but in Leeds, they're cheaper. But when you get to Kempfall, it's a whole different ballgame. A 1-bedroom apartment would likely cost you $1,900 and maybe $2,000 a month. So there's quite a disparity in the pricing. So I wonder if you could mention to the counties or whatever, if they could have, like, when they create that rental price, if it could be a sliding scale from the Kempfall area to Front of Young, you know what I mean? Because you'll never rent anything in Kempfall for, what is it, $1,300 and $1,200 a month. impossible. Thanks, a good presentation.
It's a great suggestion.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Smith?
I've just got one question, and I'm not quite sure it's gonna work. On the secondary suite program, which is the landlord program, there's a 10-year forgivable loan up to 50,000 for landlords to create secondary suite on the property of the existing rental unit. So if an ordinary person had a house and wanted to put an apartment for a rental unit, would they be able to do that? Apply for that 50,000?
So they would be looking at the homeowner program, so that's the Ontario DOT funded one, so that one is 25,000 for 15 years, so again, that's the provincial. Program, so yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Underhill, for an update on the planning. It's helpful to everyone at the table. I know we hear that so far in my time at counties, we've heard, a considerable amount. My questions just go towards uptake in the program, the percentages of uptake, and what we can do, or if there are ideas towards increasing uptake. I know there's no waiting list of 400. We don't really need to increase the uptake on rent gear, that's for sure. But in the secondary suite program, my understanding is that there's interest, but not a lot of uptake. So what can we do? What can be done to help increase the uptake in that program? I think we all want that to be a possibility for affordable housing, or help to create some more units, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of uptake. So what can we do?
Yeah, some of the challenges are the home construction costs. Right now, if you're looking at building a secondary suite, you could be looking at $60,000 to $100,000, just depending on how big or small you end up going. So that can be a factor. I know staff have had a number of inquiries about loan programs. And it's just a matter of navigating, even the zoning. So there's a little unit and they're dealing with septic, and so it is a bit more challenging when you're looking at creating a secondary suite on a rural lot versus a service one. So the cost, and then just I'm still trying to get the word out there. Tonight, unfortunately, because I was booked here, I wasn't able to be. There's a landlord session up in Canfield, and that the counties has put on as being provide support. So they're presenting my slide on secondary suites to help tell them about and make them aware of it. And there's one just to try to connect with these landlords and get the word.
Is it, if I may, is it, so the idea of the secondary suite program is that 15-year 25K loan, but my understanding is if you sell the property, you are responsible to pay all of the 25K back as well. Is that?
So each program is different in terms of how the repayment works. So for the homeowner one, it is forgiven at an equal rate per year. So let's say you get halfway through, so 15 years, you would have to pay half back, which is kind of nice. And then let's say you create a secondary suite and your life circumstances change, you're not on the hook for the full amount. The landlord program was looked at a little differently, just because landlords are in the business for profit. So the program was written with the so that it would be for the whole 10 years, but the period of time is short.
And so the period of time is less than 10 years, or
It's 10 years for
It's
the
10.
landlord and 15 for the home.
but they're responsible for 100% of the 50K,
Yes.
and they have to charge 80% of
The-
market value.
Yes.
And just because I wrote in my notes, I just want to make sure I have it right. 80% of market value is determined. I think it goes back to what Mr. Dobie was saying, that rents are different everywhere, but 80% of Rockville values.
Of the county, so we create a round table based on all of the county rents that we look at, and so for instance, right now, it's 980% per bedroom unit.
So it's an average that's applied equally everywhere.
Yes, at this point, we have one table for the full county, so they look at rents in all the different towns and cities, and we look at the 5 bedroom size, so each size is a different.
Okay, good. Looking forward to, I don't know, and I've been meaning to discuss this with staff. I know we've talked about the identification of vacant municipal land, and I don't know if you've had that conversation with staff, but I meant to make sure it was on their radar. I have forgotten until you mentioned it now, but I'm certainly looking forward to that workshop, because I think whether it's Brockville, Prescott, or places that have services, there are some exciting things that can be done if municipalities are willing to partner for some of these solutions. So, yeah, good. Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, I just, in sort of echoing what the mayor said, as well as Mr. Novi said, and the difference, I guess, in the funding, so there is no benefit, I say it like this, I'm not saying it badly, I appreciate that, but no difference if a landlord was to try and build a 1 bedroom versus a 4 bedroom, they're getting the same amount of dollars. There's no, or is there something in the equation as well that calculates that?
You're right, there's one amount, and I think for most secondary suites, it's probably not going to be much bigger than a 1 bedroom, just because the nature of them. We might see a 2 bedroom, but I would anticipate most of the same ones, but you're right, it's one amount, whether regardless.
Good, thank you. And the other thing that you talked about as well, which is great, is that I was a little worried when I saw the $280,000 as the cap right now, but that's being reviewed. So good to hear. And, yeah, we look forward to working with you for sure down the road here. And whatever we can do to help, we're there for you. So appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much, Ken. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ken.
What was that saying?
Oh, thanks. So moving on to number 6, actions and information and discussion items. Under the section A for land use planning. Number 1 is an application for a zoning amendment, County Road number 2. Through the CBC, if you could give us your brief introduction to that, that'd be great.
Chair, so we have an application for zoning amendments for an property on County Road 2. It's just west of Cardinal. And I said in my report, it's just going to go down. Actually, the land owned by the Fair Housing Commission is into the town and it's not quite adjacent, almost adjacent. So this the application for zoning amendment proposes relief from setback requirements to the water course, and the setback to the county road, and the setback to water course that actually runs north south. It's an intimate water course. It's not always there, but there isn't any room on the property to meet the required setback to the water course. This application was actually submitted originally back in November of 2021, and we had already held a public meeting for this application in February 2022. We received comments on the application way back then from a number of agencies, none from the public, but from a number of agencies. One being the Conservation Authority, who had some questions and was missing some information in the review of the slope stability report. There's some steep slopes on this property that would be a natural hazard that the Conservation Authority would address. And in order to give the applicant some time to provide that information, to revise the report and get that information from the Conservation Authority, we have made a decision on this application since then. So you'll see I've included the agency comments in this agenda package, and most of them are about a year old for that reason, but there are recent ones there from the Conservation Authority because the applicant submitted revised slope stability assessment, and the Conservation Authority has reviewed it, and they're in agreement with the findings of that report. There is a report here from our planner NOTEC that outlines more detailed information about the application, and there is a draft bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much for those details. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions?
Just, if I might, so Just have an E, I should have asked you this earlier today, does it have an H applied to it in zoning? Like, is it a holding zone?
Back in November 2021, the property was zoned residential second density with a holding zone. And the holding zone was there until it could be confirmed that there was enough capacity with municipal servicing for the property. When we did our comprehensive zoning bylaw review, the holding zone was removed from that property, and the proposal here is to develop on private servicing, so private.
We, if I may, through the chair, we discussed that today. I knew that there was something and it didn't come to me until just now that there was probably an H applied to that. I forgot that it had been taken off, so that's it. I know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at either the last CDC or even the last council, we had discussed this. It had come in front of us with the stability and slope analysis, like the need for different materials and things like that could be needed for around foundations, and there was discussion regarding it before. My only concern is the entrance way on and off of the highway 2 at that location. And do we have, like, from the counties, do the counties comment on that as well? Is it in this application as well? Like, other than that, I have no issue with this at all. It's just gonna build.
Through the chair, yeah, the counties have commented on the application, in their comment a year ago, they had requested a slightly increased setback from the county road to where they plan to build the dwelling, and that's been accommodated in the site plan. No concerns have been about where the entranceway is. There might already be an entranceway permit issue, but I could be incorrect on that, sorry. But no comments about the location.
One more, if I might. So in reading that, I noticed that it was 0.8 to 1 meter set back was the request from that. They were able to accommodate that request.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't realize that. Thank you. That's it for me.
Yes, thank you, to the chair. I just have a question, Wendy, from our official plan, is it 30 meters from the water to? So we're going from 30 to 15 on this half? Is that right?
Yeah. So the applicant has provided environmental assessment to show that the construction that close to the water course isn't going to have a negative impact on the fish habitat that may be there, and the environmentalists supported that. That reduced setback. The Conservation Authority way back when they could review for natural heritage, also reviewed it as a peer reviewer, and there are recommendations attached to that report saying for things that should be done, and they're pretty standard recommendations that you see other environmental impact assessments. I think, like what said in erosion control, we might have like some screening during the construction process.
Right.
And we're gonna have to walk with that during the building.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, the novel was good reading, by the way. This has been going on for 15 years. As we've dealt with this before in the past with past councils. And it's hard to believe how a house could be built on that slope on that part of the land. And it is actually pretty much on the bend of the road there that what the mayor was talking about too. It's pretty hard to see that, but it's nice to see that eventually somebody has followed through with having the slope looked at, the counties involved, the South Nation in different respects, and it's nice to see that it's either completely done or it's completely moved ahead, and I'm glad it's moved ahead. Somebody's put a lot of money into a lot of consultants to make it work out.
Mr. Bertel?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I did a drive-by of it again just to see it on the weekend, and to your point, I looked down that slope and said, that's, it's, I trust the architects and everybody, I just, it looked unique to me, but glad to get that to Becca as well. So, if they don't fall off the back day. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, one more thing. I do believe that there's water there, town water that runs up that far, so that'll be one thing that they won't have to drill.
I don't know if it does or not.
Well, I know that it runs up as far as the Dodge Farm, anyway, the water, so the water's got to be there.
It's close. Yeah, because there was some discussion actually, we didn't do that, about the, there was a subject on it as well. Yeah, that would be water. Okay, and I read this and, not anything I had to talk about, we're all addressed in various questions, so, okay. So with that, do I have a mover for this, this motion? Oh, moved by Councillor Waddy Smale and seconded by Councillor Joe Martell. All right, I guess I call the question then. All in favor? Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on to number 2, Bill 23, more homes built faster. It's a discussion item that we brought up, we wanted to be talking about today, so we were talking about it. So thank you to the CDC. Yeah, a nice little summary for us. That'd be great. I mean, there is a way to summarize this.
So we have the committee at our February meeting, I requested some information on Bill 23. A very similar report to this from sharing those to the county planning advisory committee, but adapted it and looked at what is relevant for our township, not necessarily the county. So look at 3 different lenses. So Bill 23 poses changes to a number of acts, and I looked up the ones that would have the most impact on townships would be the Conservation Authorities Act, the Ontario Land Tribunal Act, and the Planning Act, which is what I've been staring at for the last few months and all the changes there. So I'll go through some of those changes briefly. In the Planning Act, there are some restrictions for residential units. You might recall just recently did an official plan amendment and we adopted a new comprehensive zoning bylaw where you could now we're all excited to have additional residential units. You can have a second dwelling as a separate building, and you could have a second dwelling unit, which is kind of like apartment style. So it's 3 dwelling units on one property. So the changes to the Planning Act came that in an urban settlement area, so where it's serviced, that would be cardinal logistical purposing. You would now be allowed 2 additional dwelling units of apartment style within a house, not necessarily 1 dwelling unit and 1 additional dwelling. So sometime in the future, we're going to need to do another official plan amendment to the zoning bylaw. I don't think there's a rush. The policies in the Planning Act will take precedence if it's what we allow, but we'll have to update our policies to allow that. There's also some Planning Act changes where you wouldn't be allowed to require more than 1 parking space per dwelling unit. You also wouldn't be allowed to close minimum floor area for residential units, which is in the urban southern areas so cardinal for us. We already have those policies, so we're already compliant there. There's some changes to parkland definition where we have affordable housing. There are different limits that you can ask for when you're asking for parkland definition. We only ask for parkland definition for Cashew Park land when it's a subdivision. So this doesn't have big implications for us, but if there was affordable housing as part of the development project, then we wouldn't be able to apply our asking for plan dedication to the affordable housing portion of that plan. There are limits to who can appeal certain kinds of applications. So a severance application or minor variance application is no longer subject to third-party appeals. The public could still, or a neighbor could still participate in the application process. They could still submit written comments, but they wouldn't be able to submit an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So consent are approved by the counties, and minor variance is done through our so that has limited impact on us here at CDC and council, but still some. Public meeting requirements for subdivision, so the planning and now removed requirement for public meetings when it's for a subdivision application. This, normally when there is an application for a subdivision, there's also an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. And that still needs a public meeting, so you probably still hear from the public, for an application for subdivision through that avenue. Site plan control, this is another one that impacts that. The province has done site plan control for residential developments that are up to 10 units. Which is still quite a large residential proposal for us in Edwardsburg, Cardinal. That would be a pretty big development for us. Right now, our site plan control bylaw allows us to require site plan control where there are more than 6 residential units. It also allows us to require site plan control if it's like a special exception zoning. And what the planning act does is under section 41 of the planning act, which is the site plan control, they changed the definition for development to not apply to residential development where it's less than 10 units. We just wouldn't be able to ask for site plan control. We're losing that tool, I guess, in our tool. Another big change for us is in the Conservation Authorities Act, and I included in the agenda package a handout or a review that the conservation authorities have did, and they used it for discussions with municipalities earlier this year, and I found it really helpful. I actually kept it on my desk for quite some time before I called the conservation authority and had to check and see if that was, if the service I was asking for was still something they would they provide, and that so that chart is really helpful for review here. I feel like I talked a lot on it. I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions.
I was just gonna say, free government, well, you did a pretty good summary, like I said, I mean, there was a lot to take in here. But I think we could probably start posing some questions that come up there. For anybody who pose questions, if you just make sure you give, maybe give the CDC the section it's in so that we can have a better reference for it, that'd be great. Okay, anybody have any questions on this side of the table? So far?
I just got one.
Sure.
Quick question, does the township charge development fees on an ordinary bill, or are the development fees all built into the building cost itself?
Because we don't have development charges in that.
Well, that's what they used to be, that was a good move back when.
Thank you, Mr. Dobie. Any other questions there? Okay, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I just have one, and that's on page 63, the Ontario Land Tribunal. I think that's a great new that the provincial government put in where the third party may have to pay for their losses if they don't win, because we've had a lot of nonsense. So I commend them for that. Just not too sure about taking all the power away from the conservation. Well, they're not taking all the power away. Took quite a lot. So. Anyways, good plan. I still don't understand if it's the policy if you want the truth. So as information comes in, I sure appreciate it coming down the pipe. Thank you very much.
Mr. Barrett, do you have any?
No. So I'll go very briefly. So I will say, much like the deputy mayor, I've done as much reading as I'm comfortable with, and I am very thankful for staff and their interpretation of how Bill 23 affects us, because I still, like the deputy mayor said, I'm still not quite 100% sure. I think there's some good stuff in there that helps move things along quicker that I probably support, but I certainly am. We had a fantastic partner, I believe, in South Nation Conservation Authority, and I struggle. I signed the letter, in support of South Nation, and I struggle with the removal of a lot of the, the environmental sort of the great partnership we had and some of those environmental protections that we had through them. You know, we had just signed the agreement for the septic approval authority. And honestly, I'm still not 100% certain on exactly what we do. So that will be a question when I'm done my rant here for a second. You know, on the surface for me, it feels like a downloading of responsibilities to municipal government. It feels like a lot of removal of environmental protections. And you know, I guess our consent authority through that partnership with SNC as well. We've had such a good relationship. We saw it in the letter that was attached earlier on the leader discussion as well. It really feels to me like it's a big city issue. It's a GTA style bill that instead of getting applied to only the horseshoe got applied to all of Ontario. And I don't know that we've realized all of the effects yet here. So Mr. Dobie asked a question as well, and that was, do we have development fees? So how is it different what we do versus development fees? Because they're still development fees, they're just based on permits and square foot, right? So if you could, you know, either to the development coordinator or to the CAO, if you could just explain how that's different than say like a standard development fee, so that we all understand that. And I think the other question that I had was, who does our septic approvals at this point?
Yes, so the conservation authority is still able to do septic approvals. And I think that is something that they are able to do under building code and then building code. That's my understanding. So far, let's keep working this class today. We do have a really great relationship with the conservation authority and their expertise is already mixed at the township office. So even though we get to work with them in some capacity, it's a struggle sometimes because the expertise is there and we would like to use it. Development charges, so when you apply for a building permit, so there's still a fee that you pay for the building permit. If you apply for if you have a planning application, there's still a fee for your planning application that's used to cover the cost of reviewing and processing approval of the planning application. Development charges I haven't looked into very closely because we don't charge them here, but that is something different altogether where the dollars collected from development charges go into things for the township and private people like the roads and services and infrastructure and things like that. So they're used to things like that instead of the cost of reviewing it.
Thank you. And if I may, and that's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. And my understanding is, you know, you look at a city like Mississauga, I believe is the example, where on each house it was somewhere around $150,000 of additional development charges were attached to each build that was there. Not only the permit fees and the square footage fees, but development fees of up to that amount. I mean, we certainly don't have the ability to do that here, but it's an example of where, to me, where Bill 23 relates back more towards a GTA style bill that has effects on unintended effects on municipalities like ours, where they're trying to speed things up, but it actually takes away a lot of our valuable partners' expertise and who we leaned on when we needed that, and now we have to contract it out to get that same answer. So, 2 cents.
I was looking at some of these things and some things just, I'm just not sure what happens with them, right? Like, and talk about minimum building size. I think in the planning act, in the restrictions on residential units, there's no minimum is what I read to that. So there is like, they can have as small an apartment as possible because of this rule. Is Is that a correct assumption or do I?
Pretty sure that's correct. It's provided with the agreeability tool, which may have minimum areas on certain rooms, or not, but, our zoning bylaw does not have minimum.
But it doesn't change the maximum. No, we have a rule of a maximum lot size for secondary buildings.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's good. I think that was everything else has been asked already from what I was going to be saying. So that's good. Anybody have any other questions before we move on? No? All right. So moving on to number 3, which is the agricultural land evaluation and area review, or LEAR, through the CDC. Do you want to try and do this differently, or I mean, maybe I don't know if you want to break it into smaller sections and talk about them, or if you'd prefer. Okay.
I have much to say. I more or less included a report that the county has put together. They are leading this study, and they are the ones who are managing this, and all the feedback is. This is just something I wanted to make the community aware of that was happening. So there's even a webpage on the county's website that's dedicated to the community. I myself got to their mailing list to be informed about coming. I'll do my best to inform you of next steps, and there's timelines there. So as it progresses, I can keep up to you on that.
Okay, all right. Your summary. That was your summary. Fine. So it's nice to see. Yeah, you know, there is everything there. So all right, and then we've all read it. So any questions or statements you want to make on this?
I'll just quickly, question would be to staff, have we shared the website through our social media contacts?
Through the chair, we have shared, just before the first open house meeting, we shared it on our website as community item. I'm not confident if it's been on social media or not. I also contacted some department operations that we know of in the area and made them aware that the open house was there, and asked if I could add that to the mailing list as well, especially our key stakeholders would be included in the discussion.
Thank you for that, and that's exactly where I was going with that. I just wanted to make sure, and we have been in the February meeting. There were several of our local.
It's based on the Leeds and Grenville soil surveys, which are the best available provincial data at this time. And the ministry staff has commented that those soils, they don't change greatly over time. I think they're from
Some of them are.
1949. They're quite dated, but they're still relevant today. And then the area review, that's the qualitative, like non-physical side of it, where you can look at things like like whether or not the agricultural land is fragmented or not. We prefer it to be contiguous, right? And that's adding more value as an agricultural land than it is like one isolated piece over surrounded by a residential use or something.
Yeah. And I know at the counties, one of the discussions in regard to this was, you know, in our township, land that, you know, once was farmed, is now beaver swamp and bush lots, but still retains, you know, the soil value that's underneath it. And it's an interesting, you know, sort of discussion of whether it's actually agricultural land or whether it's beaver swamp, but yeah, it's a discussion.
Yeah. I was going to reach down the table, but just to follow on that, because it was one of my questions as well. So what if the land had been exactly like we said, you know, because of the various changes in with climate and everything else, now it's a swamp, but it used to be agricultural. Is that something that they factor into the AR part of the year? Is that what they would do, or is that? Don't know. It's fine to not know. That kind of one. Yeah, okay. So, right, so we'll keep an eye on that one, obviously. Mr. Dobie, yes.
I just don't understand what this review is all about, to tell you the truth. You know, we had the gravel soil, the green gravel soil map from 1949. It's all laid out on there. Every municipality has had their planner go through all of the maps that were available at the time that they made an official plan. Or a zoning plan, you know, they went through everything. They went through that green book. I'm sure they went through that green book, because that's pretty much the only thing there is to go through. Like, so every municipal, the county has now extracted all of the information from the township, the 10 townships maps to create their own plan. So I don't see what the change is going to be once this is all over, and why they're going through it when every planner and lease agreement is already done. It just seems to me to be overkill.
Through the chair, I can only provide a very simple, non-technical.
Oh, I like simple.
Well, I don't know if this is gonna be satisfying, but when the counties, prepared their official plan that's in effect now. The province required that this, assessment be done before they adopt their next official plan. So like, okay, you're not gonna do it now, you have to do it before your next one. And I was slated for the year 2026, so sometime before 2026, when they adopt their new official plan. This has to be completed, it's a ministry requirement.
Ministry requirement, I understand that, but it just doesn't, I don't know what they're gonna do. Yeah, you might be right, there are a few parts of the land that are quite small that nowadays farmers, and it might be agricultural, but it might only be 5 acres large, you know. Which they may want to take out, but I'm hoping that they don't take all our rural land out and now put it into agriculture. Otherwise, the building in Edwardsburg and Cardinal is gonna go down the tube pretty quick. Because that's where all the lots are available, are in our rural areas, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and I got the impression it was targeting around the 100 acre mark. Was that, did I read that correctly, or is it just my assumption?
They're doing blocks.
They're doing big blocks of 100, right? So. But I guess that could encompass several properties, is that true?
Which I don't think we intended to look at it on a lot specific basis, it's more like a bigger picture. I think you're pretty good with the general, middle class side and the agricultural area is for me.
I was turning to that. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
That's my only concern is when they already have it. And is there any guarantees that this same land that you're gonna reclassify or maybe reclassify, do we lose some of our rural? Or is it guaranteed that the rural that's there now is gonna just sort of like automatically kind of be swung into rural? Or is it possible that that rural land could become agriculture again? There's no guarantees, is there? Until the study's done. No, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like if it's rural now, we have land that's rural now. And with this new system coming in, or this people that we hired from Brantford, if they in turn change that, we could lose rural land like Mr. Bobby said. And could be changed back to agriculture. Or vice versa.
Or may never have been agriculture.
Or never have been agriculture, that's right. That's probably one of my biggest concerns with all
That
this.
would be my biggest.
So, but anyways, thank you for your update.
So, anybody have anything else about them? So overall, though, if I'm reading this correctly, when they're done on this, say September or so, if we have rural lands that are now agricultural lands, we have to go back and rezone them in our land, is that true?
the chair, yes, they're anticipating that if there are changes, it would be a county's official plan amendment, we would then have to do a local official plan.
I just wanted to make sure you had that statement open because it does have possibly an impact on some people for sure, so.
I will bring any updates back to the community as well, like, if there's a need or a desire to make full comments on the process. Then the community
Thank you. All right, so then moving on to 6B, work economic development. We had a discussion, I think it was last meeting, where we wanted to know a bit more about trying to figure out if there was a possibility for a community improvement plan in the Johnstown area, which is where this conversation started off. And I think the CDC did a good job as well of putting a good summary together here for us to talk about. And so with no further ado, if you can, interested in this topic, that'd be great.
So I requested community last month, there's some information here about community improvement plans and what the process is in order to adopt a community improvement plan. We have the official plan policy framework is in place. Before a community improvement plan is adopted, council would need to identify a community improvement project area. Right now we have two community improvement project areas that are identified. One is in Spencerville and one is in Cardinal. Once that project area is identified by bylaw, then a community improvement plan could be put in place. Those plans have a lot included in a community improvement plan. It usually starts with a lot of assessments, some public consultation with MMAH. Goals are set based on our other policy documents. So we've got an economic development strategy, we have an official plan, we have a services review. There's lots of information we could draw on to figure out what our goals are, and then it's how are we going to reach those goals. One of those goals is the financial incentive program that we have in place for Cardinal and for Spencerville that we're familiar with, which is reviewed at our February meeting as well. So the ask was to identify the steps to create a community improvement plan for the Johnstown area specifically. So I think we're hoping for some discussion from the committee about why Johnstown, I guess, what is it going to do with Johnstown? I'll let you think, Rachel.
Nope, and that's fair. I was actually going to, when you were done, say that, we did take a look. We took there's a lot of information here as well that we took a greater look to say, what are the steps, and we kept coming back to every time we were talking about it, sort of in a conversation. It came back to, basically why, what is needed? Why do we think something is needed in Johnstown that we would then need to then obviously figure out how to embed that into a CIP. So we really wanted to take today's discussion and try to understand the why first, to see if and maybe it's not something, I'd love to see we could have it all discussed today as far as the why goes, but maybe it's the kind of thing that we want to come back to it. We'll have a discussion today about it, but then maybe come back as a follow-up on the whys later on if we think that's meritatious. But we'll see at the end of the discussion how that goes and do that. So on that, Mr. Deputy, were you trying to say something?
No, okay, well, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask for anybody who had any questions or input.
So can I just ask, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Why can I just ask, why are we waiting?
Why are we waiting?
Yeah, like if the council believes there should be a plan for Johnstown.
Why would we wait? Well, I think, like I said,
I mean, the first step's the bylaw. Is that what the first step is? But why would council not, between council, make up your mind whether you want to go forward or not? Do the bylaw and let's get on with it.
Well,
I want you to recognize it's a big process. It's a huge undertaking. So for the Cardinal a year. This is the plan for Cardinal, and the second one, which was quite similar to the Cardinal one, still took a year. The large public competition process, and we use the assistance of a third party for both the other plans. So there's a cost involved as well in doing this. So I think committee before making a recommendation, council could determine like, is this a priority for us? Is this something we want to advocate?
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that it's not, you know, we don't define this process, right? So you see, it's just, so it's defined by the province and the steps you were taking to go through this, so it's not like we can decide, we'll just put it in place tomorrow, we have to follow the various law process, but why? Let's go through this.
Yeah, so why can't we amend our official plan though? To include Johnson? Why do we have to go through meeting with the municipality affairs and housing, and I can understand the 20-day appeal period and adoption, but why can't we just go ahead, like Mr. Dobie said, approve the bylaw if we agree that Johnson should fit into this, and can't we just amend our official plan, or do we have to go through under the municipality act or whatever? I just feel like when you say 1 year for something, to me it's so simple, where we could take a little bit of Cardinal and Spencerville, if you want, on our goals and our objectives, and bring it back and put it all in the one for Johnson. Like, I mean, there's 19 businesses from number 2 Highland Wexford to the Johnstown Motel. 19 businesses in a 3.5 kilometer, which could help develop, improve their buildings and signage on the Kings Highway. I mean, that highway is terrible busy with tourists on bicycles. So to me, it's a no-brainer, but to get on with it, and I don't know how much the time, like you said, a year, and I'm just not happy to hear that a year. I mean, I'm sorry, I wonder if there's something we can do to speed things up. That's just my opinion. And you know, I have that consultation.
So
that's all. I'm just sort of like asking direction from staff if we can do something like that.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the real question is, are you looking for a simple financial incentive program for businesses, and that's all you want to accomplish? That's not a CIP.
No.
A CIP is certainly a more fulsome goal. Do the goals that the council after telling said for the goals and objectives for Spencerville and Cardinal, do they automatically translate to Johnstown? Is that are those the main things you want to accomplish? Right, if you're looking at what a community improvement project area is the, you know, are they dilapidated? Are they falling down? Is it overcrowding? What is driving the purpose? What is the purpose and intent? But that's really for discussion at the table. We're trying to get the discussion going around the table on what they're intending to accomplish, and then we can provide the steps that need to get done to accomplish that area.
Right, and this is where when we were discussing the prep for this meeting, we kept coming back to the why or the what. You know, what were we trying to improve, and why do we think it needs improvement? And I think that's where part of the study we come when we go in this process. But you know, like I said, we really want to try and figure the why. And I understand where you're coming from. Just get up in there. You know, but and unfortunately, some things have a process, and I think that's it. But you know, I don't know if there's an opportunity, and I think that's something that maybe staff could look into. Can you piggyback on that? But and I think we got a bit of a premium on that. But anyways, so do you guys want to say, or you see, like I wasn't doing this talk more? Or?
No, I'm glad that our CEO asked, you know, is it just for improvements of the buildings? No, there's improvements of our Kings Highway that we can, I think we should be looking at in the United Counties with better signage and better to show what we have to offer on the Kings Highway from Wexford to Johnstown. It's a big area that we're missing. I see it with bicycles. I mean, I talked with 3 different types of bicycles last year. 2 were from Germany, for God's sakes, biking down to Montreal. And, where's this, where's that? That's all, like signage and maybe improvements for some of our hotels or whatever. We've got restaurants that, I'm.
Absolutely. So, please, note that.
Yeah, I'm good. I just feel like we should get rolling. I just, maybe we have to go through the procedures. Okay, a year, why can't we just sit off?
But I mean, I think we got part of the question, part of your whys, if you think anyways, when we were talking about the various things you saw. And by the way, so we're not always aware that, Mr. Water Smell has, taken a brief, pause from the meeting, so we'll just continue on, but. Okay, so anything else? Yeah.
Sure, I will. I like, the deputy mayor and, Mr. Dobie before him believe that, we need to move ahead with some form of a CIP that includes, maybe not just Johnstown, but all, the entire township. Good. So, so I was saying, I certainly agree with the deputy mayor and Mr. Gobi that we need to, include the many businesses that are in the Johnstown area, but, if we're going to go through the process of an amendment and changing the CIP area, I think it's worthwhile making sure that we support all small businesses, all businesses in the entire area, and looking at the entire township as a CIP area. Everywhere could benefit from signage and revitalization in our entire township. And I know the idea was, a defined main street back in the day. I think that we looked at the core in Cardinal and the core in Spencerville, and we couldn't find that core in Johnstown to do it. But I think it's up to us to set our idea of what we believe the CIP area is. And to me, that includes folks in Groveton and in New Wexford and all around the township. So I just wouldn't want to limit it to, if we were going to go that far, I wouldn't want to limit it to Johnstown. And while we've had uptake on the CIP program, to small effects in both Cardinal and Spencerville, it hasn't been exactly what I would term as robust. So I think it's time for a review at some point in the near future anyway. But having said that, when we've talked about our priorities and we've given our priorities to staff, a CIP plan hasn't been one of those, that a review of that hasn't been one of our priorities. I keep it on the lower end of my spectrum. We've tasked staff with a lot of responsibility, from affordable housing, from residential development to job site challenge, to many roles, and they have, we sort of have to focus in and determine exactly what we want to focus on. So before we give staff more responsibilities and more jobs to do. So unless we're going to third-party consult it and use taxpayer dollars to fund a program, I think the CIP should probably stay the way that it is. I think staff right now, with the Highway 2 project in Cardinal this year coming up, with all the major projects that are going to be going on over this year and next year, they've already got their hands full. There's certainly a need for more planning staff, I know, as well, and we see the reports all the time from Novatech, and just adding to that list is, at this point, I'm not really sure that there's a huge need for it.
Councilor Burchett. I am going to echo what the mayor is saying, you know, as a small business myself, I have always just been. I'm looking for a term that doesn't include a swear word with a CIP, because I always felt like because my business is located in the rural, I was a second class citizen, you know. If my garage is in Spencerville, I can apply and get some funding for a new sign or for a new siding, but if my garage is in Bristol, you know, I'm screwed because I chose to have a business in the rural. I think it's something that if we're going to expand it, let's expand it, but I also agree that it's not on our priorities this year, but I don't see how it couldn't fit into the next 4 years.
Oh, it has to.
It's you know, it fits in with other things, because it's not just signage and siding, right? Part of the CIP was to renovate upstairs into housing, right? So it fits into our housing plans. I think there's a value in expanding it. I don't know if it needs to be expanded right now.
Jumping on to what Councilor Martel said, do we like, so do we have to requirements? I know it's been suggested that a quick official plan amendment would be suffice, but I don't, in my understanding, it's not that case. It has to go to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval and that sort of thing. So is it something that we would have to engage a third party again for, and do we know what the costs associated with that would be, so that, you know, obviously it won't be this year's budget, but maybe for next year's budget, that we actually set that money aside and make sure that every bit of that study that needs to get done gets done.
For the chair, an official plan, the official plan, like the framework, healthcare was already in place. We have the policies that are needed in our plan. So we, in the research that I've done, community improvement plan used to require approval from MMH. The requirement for approval, I think, no longer exists, but we're still required to consult with MMH, and we prefer that we do it early on in the process to learn best practices and get early on. We still need to designate a community improvement project area by bylaw. We prepare the community improvement plan. That's where I would recommend it's done by a third-party consultant, both our Cardinal and Spencerville plans were done by a third-party consultant. It requires at least one public meeting, but probably community engagement much earlier on, and probably more than one public meeting. I would recommend an open house, and at least open house on public meeting if you do it. There's only and official plans.
Perfect. So I guess then what I'm hearing is that really we need I have to do this, but a tiny bit more information, and that would be for me anyways, like, you know, a report on like how long the process would actually take versus what some think it would take and some wouldn't, and what the cost associated would be. I mean, is that a big undertaking to do that, or?
Through the chair, I think I'm going to step in. If it's a priority,
It's not.
I'll direct staff, put the effort in to get a robust plan put together. But if it's not a priority, I'd rather set that aside and focus on the priorities that we've said, that the council has set already, to try to get those moving. But you know, to answer your question, it really depends on how robust of a public consultation engagement that you want to do. I'm going to say that previously said probably one public meeting and potentially, you know, a couple other short engagements. But if you're going to look to expand that out township wide, it's going to take a little bit more time to make sure that you have all those checks and balances in. Although for instance, the incentive program isn't getting fully utilized as of right now, you expand that out to potentially 150 more businesses that may taking their time, it won't take very long to have that taken up, so.
That's
I
good.
think it's just putting together some of those checks and balances.
And that obviously then the budget would be what caps how many efforts we do every year. I mean, that would be the logical thing that would be the end of that game. Is it something that we can talk about maybe where, you know, let's discuss this near the end of the year to see if it's a 2024 initiative and, you know, we got a little bit of the why answer, but I don't think we had a lot of an answer, but is it something where we want to talk about just reviewing Johnstown CIP, or do we want to look at reviewing the entire township at that point in time, or, you know, sorry, starting to figure out when we would take a look at the CIP that's township wide instead of the two that we have in existence. And I'm looking for direction on what you guys are looking on for opinion of what you guys think, so we can see if there's sort of a direction for that, because, you know, because we have talked about the priorities and we are full this year for sure, and I don't think we have the capacity as we've been talking about in other meetings, so you know, is there something there that makes sense on that perspective to revisit this near the end of the year and see if we can do it 2024 or we'll push it into 2025?
Through the chair, really
Yeah. No,
the direction making directions.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Really needs to come from.
So I'll redirect my question.
Well, that's sure.
On the table.
I think what the further on the table is, there is some interest in looking at it from a township-wide perspective. I'm not necessarily sure that there's sort of consensus around that committee table, but maybe, you know, if that's the case, we can look at putting something together to undertake in 2024.
So is that kind of reasonable to Michelle, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, it's certainly on, it's low on my priority list, certainly for this year, but we've kicked to support, you know, what the deputy mayor said, we've kicked that can for.
Kick her another couple of
We've
years.
kicked her for 4 years in the past to get to this discussion, and we're gonna kick it another year, but next year it'll be a priority. And for me, it's a priority for the entire town. I think it's time that we support all businesses in the township, so.
Michelle?
Hate to do it, but I'm gonna agree with the mayor again. We table this for 12 months, you know, we'll all have another year of being counselors under our belt. And let's talk about it next February.
And Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Oh, yes, and no, I'm all in, let's keep talking.
Okay. All right, yeah, and I mean, you know, I also, I don't hate to admit it, but no, I'll agree with the mayor on that as well. I mean, I believe that this is not the year, but we should keep it on our radar, and so if we can revisit this again next year with the plans of either doing something about it next year or at least starting the process for 2025, we'll have a
Yeah.
discussion at that point. So,
I love that discussion.
all right. Okay, anything else on this, anybody? Okay, all right, moving on to 6C, which is play recreation. We have none on the agenda. And moving on to 6D. The CDC has a thing to talk about here with regards to free tree day.
The attachment and the staff report, I think in this one, and I can just screen. So a brief information item, to make the community aware that, in partnership with Conservation Authority, the township will participate in free tree day again. And for some of you, this is your, first time on council with free tree day. So the Conservation Authority, has purchased $500 worth of tree seedlings that they can give away for free. It helps with beautification of the township and it encourages tree cover. It's a good thing all around. I help facilitate free tree day every year, and it's always a feel good day. And people we contribute We match the funds, we can do that $500 so that we can give away more trees. We get rid of all of them, they're all allocated, every year, so there's a need and a lot for them, and, looking forward to it again. We haven't determined the date for the location quite yet, probably similar to last year. We'll just wait for the conservation authority to, confirm the dates that the season have arrived before we.
All right, anybody have any questions or comments at the end of the table?
A fantastic initiative that's been put on for several years by South Nation Conservation Authority. By the time I've been out there, I think twice, and by the time I've gotten out there, they were gone. And I think over the last couple of years, they were scheduled to pick them up, right? So my question, and it's the only question is, if we wanted, is there the availability to, there's a great deal of interest in this program, obviously. Is there an ability with South Nation to make it more robust on our part, or is matching and getting not only $1,000 worth of seedlings is a lot? Is there an ability to increase that a little bit or no?
The chair, I haven't gotten the impression that there is that ability. I think it's usually quite limited, and even to match the funds, I'm always looking to respond really quickly as soon as the opportunity is available, because sometimes there just aren't any more seedlings available. So we probably wouldn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's 50 cents on a dollar. I love the opportunity to get as many as we can. So it's a good thing.
It's just going through the chair. I was reading it and it said you can ask for certain types of seedlings that you want, but I don't recall reading how many are you allowed to get. Is it free? Like some person might think 100. Then sorry, I'm getting out of it.
Good chair. So we since 2020, the process is a little bit different. The first few years of this program, we would just say free tree day, here's the time and location, people could show up, and within half an hour, the years is gone. We usually ask people like 3 to 5, so we leave with 100 of them. But here you would order them in advance when it was available, and you get a group of 5 seedlings. And the Conservation Authority manages all of the ordering and allocation, and they do their best to make sure that you get your first choice for the species. And I think there's like 8 to 10 different species that you can choose from. And in fact, sometimes they can give you an option for your second choice as well. You can't have your first, they do their best to give you the second choice. And it's a group of 5, because 1 might not make it, 2 also might not make it. So if you plant 5, then you'll probably have one that.
Yeah, you know what, we have one still alive, actually, I guess it's from 4 years ago now. The other ones I didn't do so well at, but it is a good feeling. You see those leaves grow, I think it's about 3 feet tall now or something like that before. But it's about, so and so you'll give us a date when this starts to get closer. I think you're waiting for a purchase. You'll have it near the end of the month, is what I read, I believe, and then we'll go forth from there. So thank you very much.
Sure, I will, I'll let you know, but it's by the pre-work only, it's not just a ride. We probably be in your past, so it would be available just close.
Oh, and else, right, how are we getting the word? So
The conservation authority will share this with the media and will share their, for the messages and comments.
Seems to work in past years anyways. I think they're always usually use this. So that's good. All right. So thank you very much again for that one. Moving on to number 7, inquiries, notices of motion. Does anybody have any inquiries or notice of motion?
Well, I brought up the community improvement plan, so we'll go for another one. I'd like to bring up at our next CBC meeting is the rural zone lot creation to reduce our lots in the rural area from 1 hectare to 0.4 hectare. Going to reduce the frontage from 223 feet to 150 feet. Like we can have a discussion on that. Thank you.
Problem? You have that, you got that down, I guess? And that will. Sorry. Okay. Yep. I will do that, for
I'll
sure.
do,
Is there any other,
I'll do a really quick one, and it's just a staffing query. We, is there a status on, food cyclers?
And through the chair, we haven't completely sold out this round, but we've included that, a portion of that. Actually, certain related to we
Better find out.
We should have noticed.
Awesome, thank you.
Just a quick one, if I may. So we look there, on our open doors program. I had it brought to my attention this week, that we hold them only during the daytime, therefore eliminating 60% of our population that goes to work. We look at possibly moving one of them to an evening.
Just have them come to a delegation.
Yeah, that's a little more formal, though. I think the whole idea of this was it's an informal setting where people can sit down, right?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as well. I mean, I don't know, if, I think we just put that out to staff and see if there's an opportunity where we can have one of those, evening events. It doesn't have to be a Friday evening or anything like that, but if we can, do it, if everybody's okay with that. fine. Okay. Okay, so I think that's a bit of a direction. We can look in to see if there's an upcoming, I don't know how frequently we want to do them. I don't know if it's once a month thing, or we'll just try one out and see what it looks like, maybe.
I'd be happy to move Fridays to the evening. I know I get nothing more than anyway.
And I don't think that. Okay, so
That's on the daytime, right?
what's that, sir?
We hold one Fridays now. but-
We hold them on Fridays in the daytime. That's right. That's right.
One of them to a Friday, maybe just once a month to do them with.
Yeah. So, okay, so I guess the inquiry there is there a possibility for us to have, you know, at least one trial or an evening? Okay, okay, any other increase or notices of motion? All right, moving on to number 8, question period. There's something there. Any questions from the audience up there, by chance? Oh, sorry, we're gonna get us to something on the agenda. Nothing? Okay, great. All right, thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, and then number 9, there is no closed session for tonight. So moving on to number 10, which is adjournment. I'm looking for a mover. Moved by Mary Deschanel, seconded by Councilor Whitesdale. Call this question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, unanimous, and that is it. Done, Chris. That's all. That's all. Yeah, I don't say that. I saw. I
send you the invite.
I